Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you.
Hello, this is Foreign Policy Review. I'll be your host today, CARLO Parcelli. We have our special friend from Berlin, Germany, Leo ZHAO. We also have a direct from Hungary, Ben TOTH. And we have Billy Bob from the sunny state of California. And let's get right to it, guys. Anybody want to set us off with the topic?
I suppose since Tuesday was the last show, the blowback show, and we discussed the grain deal ending, maybe the follow-ups there should be an interesting thing to get the ball rolling, you know? Because today is the first day when Russia just no longer guarantees the safety of any vessel over the Black Sea, as I think it was Pepe Escobar who said it. Now it's just the Black Sea is a Russian lake. And interestingly enough, today the Ukrainian Minister of Defense also announced mirroring the same thing. I don't know what to make of this, saying if any Russian ship or any ship goes to a Russian port, it will be considered carrying, the enemy's weaponry. I don't know what that means because I don't know of a Ukrainian Navy or any capacity to sink boats other than damaging the Moskva ages back. But they did that. So that's the two pieces of news there. And basically everybody's pulled out. First, the US, no, we're not going to send warships to do that. That was Kirby saying it. You have to get the grain out by train or by car. Turkey, I mean, Zelensky requested that Turkey send warships to protect the boats, and he said, no, we're not going to do that. So basically, it actually is terminated. It's over.
Yeah, Ukraine would have probably appreciated a U.S. Guarantee of protection or a Turkish guarantee of protection for the continuation of the deal, but they did not get that. The U.S. wasn't going to go for that escalation, and neither was Turkey. So I think Ukraine was a little upset, but it is what it is. And, they don't, like you said, they don't have a Navy, Ben, so they're not going to be doing too much to destroy the Black Fleet. That's a pipe dream. Today's title is a Mao quote. Can you remind me, Leo, what the precise Mao quote was and how it's even more applicable today than, say, when Mao actually said it?
All is disorder under heaven, and the opportunities are excellent.
That's the way to say it, by the way, just like Leo said it right now. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Everything for the last 30 years that seemed to be stable seems to be in flux and up in the air. It really is. Tectonic shifts everywhere.
Yeah, just about 100 years after the major upheavals of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Almost right on schedule, according to Marxist understanding of capitalist bourgeois economics.
It is a major crisis, a major global crisis, and the panic, it's just palpable right now in every single headline. You can go to economic sites about the dollar, about trade. You can go to technological magazines about China and how we couldn't stop the march forward in chips, in high technology, or you can go to military news. It's just the panic is everywhere. All the shit that previously, by the way, this is brand new. Even Israel, the little protectorate, they, I think, officially were requested that France intervene or do something so as to stop a confrontation with Hezbollah, which is the Lebanese, very well-equipped liberation force, mostly equipped by Iran. That seems to me like they're terrified of an actual confrontation. So everything that was stable and taken for granted, like the EU's prosperity, you could talk about that. it seems to be no longer taken for granted, but it's just no longer there.
You know,
Houses built out of sand is Jimi Hendrix quote. Anyway, go on.
we can use that for our next program. Well, I was gonna mention, was it Putin and Z that you know, one said to the other, or something like that, that you know, these we're seeing geopolitical changes that haven't been seen in 100 years, that come along every century.
They both said it. They
was
said
that,
it to each other. I'm just trying to recall if it was a Valdai or maybe it wasn't the Chinese Winter Olympics, but it was one of these events where they were told, but maybe the Spieth. But that was way back at the beginning. Sorry, Leo?
I thought it was when she visited Putin in Moscow.
Yeah, after February 2022, right?
I think so, yeah.
And everything kicked off, yeah.
And it was the farewell remark.
Yes, exactly. As he, one of them escorted the other to the car. That's when this took place, yeah. And we are the ones leading it was the answer to that quote, by the way.
Yeah.
It is true.
And backing up to Netanyahu, apparently he's been hospitalized again.
Yeah.
Now that the pressure from his own people has gotten so severe because of his initiative to make himself like a Superman, of invulnerable to any kind of arrest or being charged with being indicted on any form of any crime, which is essentially what he was trying to do, to make himself immune from any criminal prosecution. So it's almost like it's a rudderless ship now, and suddenly in Israel.
I haven't been following Israel closely, but I know it's chest pain is all I know about this, and he has been hospitalized.
Yeah, but yet the brutalization of the Palestinians has not ceased, not been lessened one bit. They were fiercely bombed 2 weeks ago. So.
Oh yes. Nakba has not ceased for 60 years now. Every year the Palestinians with the keys. So yeah. That's an unresolved issue. Ukraine is resolving itself rather fast, but this seems to be all over the place. While the guys, the axis of resistance, good guys, bad guys, I don't care. They're making deals left and right. I mean, maybe we should talk about these gatherings that have taken place in the last couple of days. The European Union was my favorite because they got the Latin Americans, the Caribbean countries here. This was, by the way, a week ago, we talked about this, where Zelensky wanted to address them and give a speech, and they just boycotted that, the Latin American countries. They had this gathering, and they said with some self-consciousness that we've neglected these ties for 8 years or 9 years. They haven't met in that time, but we want to repair that. And the major thing was we want access to resources. We want you to condemn fucking Russia. These were the major things, and then basically they told like Nicaragua, you shouldn't access BRICS, and they said, well, fuck you, we can do whatever you want. And even Nicaragua, which is the most, the weakest link there, it's just ridiculous. By the way, Orban was there, my prime minister, and he said, finally, we found some friends, at least according to the policy of Hungary, which is for peace. Like a voice for peace among all the rabid European leaders who don't want peace. They want more weapons, victory, and all that shit. Orban was finally not alone, so maybe the bubble burst for these people, but I'm not sure. In the meantime, China is having people over. Iran had a 3-point tour of Africa, signed I don't know how many deals, but 20 or something. They're just making deals left and right, where Europe is sanctioning and doing everything they used to do. Telling you, lecturing you what to do.
Yes,
that's what they do.
Isn't Europe amazing? They have all the the United States too. They have all the sincerity of a Hallmark card, and it's just a joke.
I mean that's Europe's top priority. Support Ukraine, denounce Russia, and open up your resources to our exploitation. That's they're just living in a previous time when they could do that and people would be forced to listen.
And they're truly hostages now. Apparently, this came out somewhere in a diplomatic magazine. I don't remember, but Guterres, the one for the grain deal, the UN guy for the grain deal in Europe, he actually tried to unsanction the Russian bank but the US vetoed it at every turn. So sorry, we don't have an actual sovereign way of decision making, just beholden to the US now, and that's pretty much
in an effort to continue the grain deal. He was trying to abide by the terms of the grain deal, and the US vetoed it.
Oh no, like a year ago, when that was one of the main considerations of Russia to unsanction that bank, he actually tried to do it. He tried to lobby for it, and he just ran into stone walls with it.
Yeah.
So that's why for a year the basic stipulations have not been met. But that's
on the other hand, that could give the U.S. the propaganda win, because they can now say that Russia's killing children in Africa.
Oh, Annalena Baerbock, our favorite. I think she was a gymnast of some sort when she was young. Maybe she was fit or something. But I think she said that every rocket fired at Odessa is, I'm just gonna do this verbatim because she deserves it. Missile is also fired at the starving people of the world. That's the quotable Miss Baerbock.
Yeah.
What? What?
Yeah, man.
And
she demanded Russia do a 360.
Yeah,
and they did. So she's got a lot of juice.
No, we're not going to change our attitude towards Ukraine until Vladimir Putin changes his attitude 360 degrees.
He obliged. He quickly obliged.
and China and Russia are so far ahead of the game on that, because when the West came out with the propaganda that 600,000 tons of wheat destined for China had been destroyed by the Odessa attack. Well, China had already been tipped off that this attack was going to happen when the grain deal fell through, and so they've made other arrangements, folks.
True, and if you look at the reliance on Russian or Ukrainian grain, China is not the hugest one. It's mostly the EU. I actually checked this out. They're like 1% or 2%. It's a very little slice of China's actual grain that comes from this region. It's very ridiculous. Also, the attack, which was huge, according to Kiev and Russia and the Ministry of Defenses on both sides, on Odessa and Nikolaev, they were military targets. They have been for a year. They don't bomb grain, people. They just don't. But of course, we'll take everything. Samantha Power, Miss, USAID, who paraded in Budapest not that long ago, is now doing this mini tour. She went to Kiev, then went to Odessa, just to show the devastation and look how horrible those brutish orcs are. And then she went back to Bucha, which is a year-old fabricated atrocity. They just, as we said a couple of times, they're still waging a media war and losing.
Yeah. That's totally what it is. It's just exploiting to the fullest possible extent these propaganda narratives that have no basis in actual reality.
How long that can hold out, nobody knows.
What's that?
How long that can sustain, nobody knows.
Yeah.
It's not looking good based on the Miltech headlines, about with the ammunition and the stockpiles of Europe and the industrial capacity. And this is Russia alone with a surplus. Not a wartime economy, not full mobilization. She's waging the special military operation while trading with the world and having a trade surplus. That is fucking amazing. Defeating about 50 nations combined toys without China even spluttering. Because if China ramps up industrial production, well, I think, Leo, you can imagine that kind of times 100, like what we have today.
Yeah.
So Leo, I'm sorry. I just want to ask, what's the public opinion and what's it like in Germany? Is it shifting a bit?
Not that I can notice. People are definitely holding on to the narrative for as long as they can, and so far, yeah. I mean, I hang out with my communist friends, and I've lost most of my liberal friends, but I'm
same here.
So I mean, I walk around, I live in, just by coincidence, a little bit posh neighborhood, and everything's just the same, and people are, going about their business, acting as if everything is normal. But, a little anecdote. I went to a little academic kind of gathering in a private residence, featuring a lot of scholars from the post-colonial, academic industrial complex. And there was an African musician who's a pretty great musician. And, I attended this event thinking that I would just discuss music and culture, and I wanted to leave politics out of it because, it's pointless to
I'm
get
guessing
into
that
it
didn't happen. What
with these
happened?
well, I met this African musician, right? He's from
Yeah.
Guinea-Bissau, and within the first 30 seconds, he mentions BRICS. He goes, well, what country are you from? I said, China. He says, oh, China and Africa, we are becoming closer and closer. And
Yes.
we are becoming integrated, and the future belongs to us. I was like,
Holy
what? Like,
The
within
first,
the first 30 seconds, I did not expect that at all. Like, and I
How
talked
amazing
to
is
other
that?
people, yeah. But anyway, people, the global South is absolutely, they know what's up. They know what time it is.
they're outside of this bubble, you know.
Yeah.
Western Europe is very much caught in this bubble. It has to burst sooner or later. But I'm really glad that Africa sees very clearly what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, we discussed that last
More
week.
and more.
At some bit. Yeah.
Yeah, question though, because every week or month, people say to me, people who are Hungarian but work in Germany, yeah, everything is fine. We get a good salaries and we can still buy shit. But every week I see something closing, a factory turning down, spluttering down because in the winter we're going to have gas shit. And we had a friend of the show, SL Canton, an Indian, very observant person, and he introduced me to Mittelstadt. You know this better than me. The backbone of the German economy is little family businesses. For 100 years, they've been making this widget or that type of beer and all that. And that seems to be, based on just the economic news from Bild and Zeitung and places like that, it seems to be slaughtered. Do you get any sense of that from the people on the street?
No, I don't. But I
See,
mean,
that's interesting.
But it must be hitting a lot of people here as well. I mean, people are. I mean, but the thing is, people don't know.
You're in the big city, aren't you? You're in Berlin.
I'm in Berlin.
I'm just wondering if it's a rural phenomenon more than a central city thing. Because
Maybe
it really is every week in the German press.
Yeah. I mean, it must be happening. The shift of consciousness, or people beginning to wonder something is awfully awry. But the problem is, I think these days, for a person who's been entrenched in the imperialist ideology for 4, 5, 6, 7 generations, you really it's impossible for them to understand what is happening without like doing the really hard work of reassessing everything that they have been told, like literally for 6 generations. I think it's really rather daunting, the prospect of people,
it's going to be painful, isn't it?
It is. It really
actually
is.
breaking through this. Yeah.
Yeah, if you just think about a little thing like, for example, I don't know, the Xinjiang genocide, right?
Yeah. Man, so many people still eat that.
Yeah, it's insane. It's there's hundreds, thousands of videos coming out of Xinjiang every day. People, going about their business like happy as, much more.
All the Arab countries sent delegates there, and then it was just off the news. And they were like, they found no evidence of any wrongdoing, off the news, yanked.
Absolutely. But in order for people to even entertain the idea that is not true, what the Western media says, they would have to really like take apart their house, their entire house, like brick by brick. Like, there's no way to accept that or even to begin questioning without dismantling the entire ideological apparatus of freedom, democracy, and authoritarianism, and all of this stuff. We've reached that point.
Beliefs.
It's really insane.
Yeah, I mean, reality is going to have to hit them, in their daily lives as far as lower living standards for them to really try and, be able to figure it out. People, you can't just talk it into them. They're going to have to experience it, and then they're going to have to try and figure out what's going on. But you live in a well-to-do neighborhood, and when economic crises strike, it always affects the poorest and most vulnerable the first and the most, and then it'll slowly build up. So I mean, I'm not surprised that you're not seeing anything in your immediate neighborhood, but I would be surprised if maybe in the poor areas, there's not some noticeable stuff. Like when I ride my bike here around in Northern California, the number of homeless encampments, and of course, a lot of that could have been from COVID, was related partly to that. But definitely the economy is not, it's going the wrong direction, in the West. And
Germany is similar to the U.S. The poverty rates here are insane. 1 in 5 children is under the poverty line.
Yeah, I read that all the time, and the well-to-do German friends say, "Oh, that can't be true." But sorry, continue.
And I just saw a recent study. The number of people that cannot afford a meal every 2 days, that includes meat, fish, or vegetarian equivalent, in Germany is higher than in Greece. And I mean, the strongest economy in Western Europe, the backbone of EU financial power. I mean, that's just capitalism, and people are going to deny it.
It's not affecting the people that that live in your neighborhood. So they're oblivious, and it doesn't change their views. But how long can that be maintained? I don't think. I think it's going to continue to deteriorate.
Yeah, I mean,
and without understanding, without understanding the bigger picture that I'm talking about, the long-term historical trajectory that has led us to this point, people are just going to turn to the right.
Yes. Yeah, and that is a terrible, especially in Europe, a terrible development. I just want to say
Doesn't Germany have a history of that? Sorry, Ben, but Germany has kind of a little bit of history of.
Yeah, I think I remember some of that. Yeah,
remilitarization, scapegoating the wrong kind of people, and expansionism. Oh, I've never heard of anything like that. Like a mustache trimmed to the middle.
Though, there's a term for it, and I can't think of it right now. But the polls here, when people are polled about do they trust the media, it's almost in single digits.
It's lower than Congress. That's
11 or 16% or tops. Yet when it comes to like what Leo's talking about, realizing this painful change that you've been lied to through the media all these years, they don't get it. Then they won't do it. Maybe it is just too painful. It's an admission.
It's the core beliefs that oftentimes the person has built his personality on those core beliefs, and it has to hit them like a fucking truck. So I'll bring in a local anecdote. It was 15th century Hungary. You don't care. It's not a big deal. There was a big peasant uprising. Dózsa György, one of our heroes, Gea Florian, one of the leaders, they led it. And most of the people, those counts and little kinglets in Budapest, were not even aware that anything was going on until the fucking peasants, like millions of them, were at their doorsteps with pitchforks. And it's like the Marie Antoinette moment in Hungary. Unfortunately, they managed to kill the peasant uprising. But basically, it has to get that point, like, ooh, what? Let them eat cake. Oh, sorry, it's no longer an option. That is, I think, the point that most of Europe is getting to. The US to a lesser degree, but the ideology that Leo. Sorry, here you go. Go, Billy.
I was just going to say, I mean, Lenin, I think he explicitly, made that point that until the bourgeoisie themselves are feeling, the pain of, economic crisis, political crisis, that that's necessary for revolution to be able to succeed. Like revolution won't succeed while the bourgeoisie are enjoying their lives unaffected by the turmoil around them. But once the turmoil starts to affect them, that's when the opportunities are really open for substantial change and revolution.
The problem is
seeing my own
face. Yeah, it's been reshuffled a little bit. The problem is that they're always the last to feel it. I don't think they have issues getting milk and bread and filling up their car either with gasoline or with Tesla juice.
No, and they're very good at making sure they're not going to be, they're at pushing the pain off to others. So they're really good at doing that, and it's not easy. Things have to get really bad for them to start hurting, and that's the problem. But they're really good at making sure everybody else absorbs all. And that's why they're so willy-nilly. That's why they're so willing to do these policies that are disastrous and suicidal, because they know it's not going to affect them. It's going to be affecting, the working class, who they really just see as a threat to exploit. Like that's how they see us. We're a threat to exploit. So hey, we'll do these policies that are gonna only benefit us, like World War III, conventional World War III, like trying to destroy Russia and China.
Yeah. One of those moments will be, I think, the unequivocal victory of Russia, but we don't have to go there. I want to say there was I'm not sure this is the right phrase, but I think there was a come to Jesus moment during the Caribbean EU summit. I can't remember which leader. By the way, Olaf Scholz put a positive spin on it. Like we actually could do a single messaging that people agreed to. But I think it was one of the Baltic with little midgets, Latvia, Estonia. One of those leaders said, "I don't understand. They always look at us like colonizers and people who exploit their lands." And he just didn't understand. Like, yeah, for hundreds of years, that is Europe. That is the picture they have of Europe, of the Spaniards, of the Brits, of that is what you did. That's your history. And he didn't understand, because for him, Europe is the garden, the always prosperous, the very benevolent, for world peace, human rights, and democracy. That's the big bubble that has to burst, I think.
Yeah, and that is the truth that people have to face if they want to truly understand what's going on today in the world, right? Is the continuity of the colonial project. There's been no rupture. There's been no shift. I mean, these countries, England, the U.S., is the scion, the heir to empire. Yeah, and this fictional rupture, right, in 1945, that's what I locate as the most significant tool or circumstance that allowed the colonial powers to remake themselves, to rebrand themselves in 1945, because they were involved in a minor role in putting down their own attack dogs against German communism, which was almost succeeding in the revolution of 1919, and to, of course, attack the Soviet Union. And I think this historical moment, they capitalized on that, on their minor role in fighting the Nazis, and made themselves into be the moral defenders of freedom, democracy, and human rights. And also
amazing rebranding.
Amazing. And also the demonizing of the Nazis. I mean, of course, it makes sense, but in all of the colonial guilt, all of the colonial atrocities, genocides all over the world, all of this was sort of contained magically in the figure of the German Nazi.
Yeah,
and
that was
they
the scapegoat.
The evil ones, the only evil ones in Europe, and because France and England and
Belgium, Spain
enter the war at a very late stage when they knew the Nazis were not going to win. They came in, and it's the most cynical, the most sick thing to use that as their prop to shift blame from themselves and to shift all of the historical crimes onto this one group of fascists.
That's a very accurate observation.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that.
And by the way,
but it's very
I mentioned this in a comment after a Vijay Prashad talk last week or the week before that in Berlin. He gave 2 talks in Berlin. I attended both of them, and he didn't address that. The topic was his new book. What is it? His new book about imperialism, basically. And my point was that, well, Germany is also a kind of victim of U.S. imperialism. And
today,
the historical process that I was just talking about, and he sort of didn't address that, and then afterwards he caught me alone for a second. He came up to me and he said, I will never forget this. He said, I really liked your comments, but some things you just cannot talk about.
Wow.
Whoa.
Huh.
Really?
in
Tigro
public.
3J. That's interesting.
To back up a little bit, people are also in the West are afraid of losing the perks they have. Uh, Obviously, they take a look at the South and they go, the global South, and they go, oh no, as though there's a limitation. There's a limit on stuff, and if you only have so much stuff, and if you let everybody have it, you'll have less. That attitude. But the other, what I really wanted to say was something that relates to what Leo just said, and that is after World War II, or at the end of World War II, the writing was on. I mean, the obvious writing was on the wall. This is where controlling the narrative is so important. You had the United States bringing in Nazis to South America and to the United States itself in
Europe.
In truckloads. You had you had NASA run by a Nazi, a V2 Nazi, Werner von Braun. You had Dornberger from Peenemünde, who just worked people to death. Just on and on and on. And the other place, but there's no acknowledgement of that in the history of what's going on. Besides that, or the one that really gets me is the Vietnamese. They were, the Japanese occupied Vietnam during World War II, and they were brutal to the Vietnamese.
Absolutely.
As soon as the war ended, what did the U.S. do? They armed the Japanese to keep an eye on the Vietnamese till the French could come back in and reestablish their hegemony there. And it's like people don't know these situations. These facts occurred, and I don't see anybody on the horizon being able to make those distinctions, because, as we discussed earlier, I have basically lost all of I work in the literary world. I've basically lost every one of those people to virtue signaling. Even my closest friends, even the people I published a literary magazine with for 17 years, they want to push back against what I know, and they can't. And when I press them, and I can press, they don't want to hear it. They just don't want to hear it. It's like.
I think we've all lost people in the last year or so, but we have to go to a commercial break, MUTIU, and we'll get right back.
Yes.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you.
We're back.
Except for Leo, but we are back.
Leo's taking a break.
That was a kind of a somber thought from Carlo there.
While he's on break, I want to interject something very funny.
Let's go.
Unfortunately, I can't remember the British journalist's name, but with the latest attack on the Birch Bridge?
Birch Bridge, yes.
Ukraine, he stated that with that attack, that was a masterstroke of military strategy, because it now isolates Crimea from Russia, and now nothing can flow to
Land bridge, despite that even the car traffic has been resumed and the train traffic never stopped.
Yes, and despite the fact that people have been ferrying stuff from mainland Russia to Crimea since the beginning, almost the beginning.
The ferries are big. I mean, the capacity for the ships just to go back and forth. I mean, that's huge. And not to mention the airlift, God bless them. Oh, Peter Zehan. I've been complaining about Peter Zehan on my Facebook. I mean, he's such a snake oil salesman. He's just one of those anti-China. Okay, people
I know.
call him the white Gordon Chang, right?
He is.
China's about to collapse, but it's just insidious how prolific he is and how YouTube just promotes and proliferates his nonsense. I mean, he'll say some stupid shit, and then within 2 days, like 500,000 people minimum have watched it. But Brian Berletic was taking him to task for his idiocy, and he said the same thing. So you said it was a British journalist. Well, I know Peter Zehan made that same comment, and Brian Berletic took him to task. But
maybe it is him, because I thought Alexander McCourse introduced it, but I tried listening to the show I thought it was on, and he didn't get around to saying it. But I only got through half the show before we had to go.
SL Cantham has also debunked Mr. Zehan, and so if we have him back, we should ask him about his
debunking is fine, but even on Twitter, he gets heaps of likes on this absolute nonsense that he posts, and I favor it for one. I always like it because the more people in the world believe China is on the edge of collapse, they can't manufacture anything, they're shit on chips, the better it is for China. I think he doesn't know it, but that is a net positive, when it comes to China. If people believe it's a fragile basket, it's just going to collapse any day now. Like poor old Gordon Chang, who's gotten, I think he's off his pills. He recently said that the Chinese are infiltrating the US and drinking blood, sort of underground cells or something like that. He said this on telly. People clipped it. He's very lonely and really, I think he should get some help.
Except Kennedy hired him as a political advisor for his campaign, or maybe So it's unfortunate. That made me lose interest with Kennedy really fast when he was all pro-Israel and Gordon Chang.
Oh, yeah,
pro-Israel, anti-China. I mean, it was disappointing. But on the other hand, if you want to be viable, like you've got to sacrifice your integrity. But then I don't have any use for you. Like if you sacrifice your integrity, I'm not gonna. We
talked about this, but in the U.S. election, I'm more interested in the show, in the dialogue, than who inherits the throne, really.
Yeah, just having a platform and being able to, say things like Trump did for 4 years. That once a day he was right, like a broken clock. But it was better than nothing. It was better than what we've been having. Well, okay, sorry, Carlo. Let me not.
No. I'm curious now. What do you think his chances are? We will switch to domestic politics.
Honestly, I don't think Trump has a chance. I think
Trump.
these they're going to use lawfare to keep him off of the ballot, and so
which only boosts his popularity. No Republican has a chance against him. That's what it looks like to me. But I'm not in the
If they allow him to run, if they allow him on the ballot, he will run the table like he did the last time. And I just don't think they want that headache. So I think they're going to behind the scenes do what they need to do to keep him from being able to, have a chance at another term. If he does run, if they allow him in the general election, because he'll win the primary. If they allow him to in the general, it'll be interesting to see what happens at that point.
I'd love that.
Kind of
I'd love him to go against RFK Jr. and Cornel West. I'd love to see those presidential.
Well, a ticket with those guys on the same ticket.
But you can still be president and be an imprisoned felon too.
It's happened.
It's like, I think that's true.
Who ran from jail? There was a U.S. president that ran from jail.
Running from jail, but not actually presiding from jail.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Running from jail. I know that happened.
But it's like the mafia, Al Capone. It's like my people. When they arrest them, they still got all the perks that,
By the way, since we're at the U.S., Marjorie Taylor Greene, love him or leave him, it doesn't matter. She actually presented pictures from Biden Jr.'s laptop to the Congress. Very explicit pictures. I don't want to say any other word than that, but that's just normal in U.S. Congress, in decorum. That just happens in the U.S. now.
I mean, the way that they went after the, insinuating that the FBI director was, manipulating January 6th, was detonating pipe bombs, that were strategically planned. Like it's a little unprecedented. It's some crazy times. I wouldn't say it's normal, but again, it's still contained. It's still partisan, and it's not really a threat to,
it's still sleight of hand, isn't it? It's without consequence.
It's theater. Yeah, it's still theater.
I missed
but
that.
really juicy, really good.
Leo.
Go ahead, Leo.
Sorry, I missed that. Well, what did she show? Like him smoking crack with whores in the background, or
Horrors look so young. They look like
explicitly
kids.
explicitly sexual stuff with big black sensor boxes, like printed this large. I don't know if you've seen this.
yeah, I'll have to look that up just for a laugh. But I think that is probably the correct attitude, is to treat the WWF wrestling match as what it is, and just get some entertainment out of it, because it's just circus.
Though the thing is that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Josh Hawley and a lot of these people, Ted Cruz, for instance, have taken a playbook from what the FBI used to do to the left, and they're taking the kind of persecution that used to come down hard on the Black Panthers, for example, and they're seeing themselves in the same position, and they're creating empathy for themselves, whether it's real or not. It's certainly not as serious as the Black Panthers. Nobody's died with dozens of bullets in their body like Fred Hampton while he was asleep. That hasn't occurred. Or you haven't been shot down on a street corner, like Huey Newton. So
it's still within the velvet ropes of polite partisan politics. I mean, not so polite anymore, but it's definitely two
fair points that Carlo said. One is they have this persecution complex, and two, Marjorie Taylor Greene is in office, whereas Chris Halali, who ran as an open Marxist-Leninist, he didn't even make it. There was smear jobs, character assassinations within weeks, and just forgotten. He didn't even get to the place.
Well, I haven't even heard that name, so
you don't know Chris Halali? Oh, sorry. Well, first openly Marxist-Leninist guy to run for some kind of office, and I'd have to look up if it was Senate.
No,
Congress.
but that's how they do. They do such a good job of censoring those things.
Yeah, they
try and stay informed, but
sexual stuff completely empty, like they did with Scott Ritter. They brought up embezzlement stuff, which was without foundation, and just destroyed the guy.
Yeah.
And just a side note in terms of how to do politics. In the West, of course, it is that's all it is mudslinging, is character assassination. And I just want to add a little side note. That is why in China there is a law that you cannot portray political figures, public figures, as cartoon characters, either to embolden them or to make fun of them. For example, it is actually illegal to portray Xi Jinping in a newspaper article as Superman or as exactly, and that's where that stupid propaganda, Western propaganda comes from. That the Pooh Bear is banned in China. I mean, that's not true at all. If you just go on Taobao, Chinese Amazon, there's dozens of pages of Pooh, the bear toys and stuff. But that is where it comes from. That there is a kernel of truth.
No, that's usually how it is for their nonsense.
Yeah, that is because
do you know since when
the Communist Party politics is serious business and it's not entertainment?
Absolutely not. But do you know when that law was introduced? Because I'm really interested.
Probably very old. I'm not sure.
I think old because I just recently saw a thread of really glorious pictures of Deng Xiaoping being, among the wheat and sort of radiating godly energies and that sort of paintings. We're not talking cartoons, but that was all made in Yang Zemin's way later premiership. And I'm wondering if they saw that and no, we don't want to do this. Maybe that's when it was born. But very interesting. I mean,
positive portrayals or objective portrayals are of course okay. It's just not in an entertaining farcical comedic way, because it's serious stuff and it's not entertainment. And also even my Aussie girlfriend, former Eastern German girlfriend, even she, I show her funny stuff from US politics and she doesn't even laugh. She's just like, that's just so stupid.
DDR girl. Shout out
absolutely.
to her.
I didn't know that about her. That's good. Congratulations to you.
Yes. I fell in love with her, and partly I fell in love with the DDR. But
don't blame you there.
Yeah, her response was exactly the same as the Communist Party of China. Politics is not entertainment. Why do you watch this stuff? Why is it even relevant or funny? And
it's not cartoons, it's not Marvel. Yeah. You're right.
And then the West, the media, of course, spins that aspect of it, and they claim that that's authoritarian. That's not true democracy. They don't allow us to trivialize it and to manipulate it and to warp people's minds about it. And so that's not true democracy. It's
cracking down on freedoms and human rights. That's what it is. That's what that is. By the way, a similar story, wholesome, healthy. There was this first interview, 1980s, in the USSR, in Soviet Union, where there was an American crowd gathered. Someone interviewed a Russian someone, and they asked it, "Is it true there is no sex in the Soviet Union?" And it became a meme. There's T-shirts because there's no sex in the Soviet Union, and everybody laughed. The girls giggled because later it was clarified that there's no pornography. There's no use of sex to sell shit. There's no use of sexuality on posters and all that stuff that America at the time was very famous for. And that was a translation, but they all giggled. And I thought, wasn't that just a marvelous time in advertising where you can't sell something with a Feelies or a beautiful pair of whatever you prefer?
Very good parallel. People in the liberal bourgeois societies have confused on a fundamental level the surface, making fun of politicians on TV as actual politics.
Yeah,
politics has been reduced to the realm of jeering and making fun and jokes and freedom of speech. Like, that's it. Policy never changes. Nothing ever changes, and it's just people jeering and throwing mud and throwing garbage at the stage. That's been reduced to that, and people confuse superficial permissiveness in neoliberalism as freedom for freedom. People are chained to their jobs and they have no say in their neighborhood, in what goes on in their neighborhood, because the landlords make all the decisions. This is no democracy on the grassroots level. People have no control over their own lives, but they feel that they're free because they're free to jeer and they're free to throw mud and they're free to
a great fundamental point by Leo. And again, I fail to think of it that way, but it's very true. Same in Hungary, I suppose, as in Germany and the US.
And is that by design, and who are the designers?
Well, I think that's just liberalism. That's just fundamentally, the focus on individual liberty as being possible with, in a society where a few people own everything and control the state. So True. What is freedom? What is individual freedom in that context? It can only be on a superficial level, on a verbiage level, and you can wear bikinis in public, and that's feminism. You can meanwhile women have no economic rights, or like much less than men, and own much less property, and the economic inequality is extreme. So it's only virtue signaling and the superficial permissiveness of liberal society has been confused for actual freedom. And the Soviet, the Chinese, the communists have always focused on the structural material conditions, equality, rather than the exterior showing how free you are by these symbolic gestures.
And that hasn't worked out too well for them, because the humans are easy to deceive, and they fall for the exterior. What's that word? The
superfluous, maybe.
The
surface level.
The surface level stuff, and they didn't really care to engage in the stuff that just is less consequential. They engaged in the more consequential stuff, and the West did the opposite. But in so many Eastern European countries, they just fell in love with Western culture and they bought it. But I think people are people are waking up, I think. But that's a great point, Leo. I mean, you're bringing up some really important truths.
Can I bring up
We
a practical answer to Carlo's question? Because that was the theoretical underpinnings that Leo just gave. But practically, because we only had liberal capitalist democracy for about, 30 years now, a little bit more, we were reintroduced this shit. And it came from the television. It obviously came the late night political shows, satirizing most of the leaders and the opposition parties, making jokes and clowns out of them. That's where it came from. And then it came down to the social level. And before that, there was these political groups, and they were talking about foreign policy and where does that grain go, and what if we get the iron ore from this place, and what's the substantive. They really talked like this at home in front of the radio, and they had charts and numbers. That's what politics was like 40 years ago in Hungary. And once this before the internet, the television was the main driver of this insanity. And as for waking up, well, we all hope for it. People who have enough time, maybe, to analyze, to break through this shit. I can tell you that emotionally, most of them are just burnt out, and they say, it doesn't matter. Whatever they are, they're both robbers. Well, it doesn't matter, and that's worse. That's worse. They're bereft of hope of a better future that we had for so many years. That is, I think, what we have to defeat first. That was my 10 cents on the subject.
Well, and I think that is by design, right? Like the ruling class has no interest of empowering the working class masses and getting them interested and excited about shaping and making society something better, because it couldn't be any better for the people that have all the power and control.
Yeah, don't move. If you want to let off some steam, watch a Marvel movie, log into a game. Don't move your chains, and then you won't notice them.
And as people around the world achieve more of that materialist well-being, is that part of the package? You know what I'm saying? I mean, on the one hand, you have the Chinese and their Belt and Road Initiative. They're lifting people out of poverty. I mean, they're providing electricity to places in Africa that have never had electricity, and wells and schools and hospitals and blah blah blah. Is when it's like the difference between somebody when they trip and fall, and they fall on a mattress, or if you're living in a country that doesn't have that well-being, you trip and fall, and you fall on the hard ground. And I psychologically, I don't know too much about this, but it seems to me that influences the way people react. And when you have the theory of leisure class by Veblen, that's the way people ultimately react. They get soft in a certain sense.
I'm intrigued by this. I'll let Leo go first. We don't have much time, but I'm intrigued. I have some answers.
Well, I mean, if we look at the foreign policy as well as domestic policy of the Communist Party of China, it is absolutely grounded in dialectical materialism, in Marxism, right? The material conditions come first, and it's the fundamental belief that it is material conditions that shape minds, and not the other way around. And that's why we will succeed. That is why the tall tales, the spinning of stories, and the verbiage cannot sustain. And it is the material conditions that will
aesthetics was the word I couldn't think of, but
good.
Yeah.
That's the one. Let me give a local, I'll do it in a couple of minutes, local anecdote. I keep asking this question to whoever I meet, new or friends. What if you had like unsensible money for things that you can't spend? Like basically, what would you buy? What would you do? And basically most of the question, 8 out of 10 is, I'm going to buy this private island with the private yacht, and I'm just going to be removed from all these problems. These are the well-off people who want to escape capitalism. They want to escape the game. The richer you get, the more anxiety you get, the more cocaine you snort, the worse it gets mentally. They want to escape. As for the Chinese, I mean, I collected this data 2 years ago, maybe, about this one guy, you probably even know his name, who started on the steam engine and went to the diesel engine, and now he's driving a fucking 300 kilometer an hour hypertrain. What he feels is enormous gratitude. Not to the party, not to Xi Jinping, the nation. They have this concept of all of us. We did this together. The promise was kept because we built together. He's not going to escape to a private island. He wants his children, his little girls, his boys to grow up even better, even nicer. And that's a fundamental difference, I think. If it's the individual psychology answer to your question, Carlo.
Yeah, it's an important point you bring up, because people are different. around the world. So the situation that grew out of the material well-being of the West, which was entirely exploitative, but that's even beside the point in this argument, may be unique to the Western frame of mind, to the post-Enlightenment frame of mind.
It's new to us. Yeah.
No, and not to the rest of the world.
What is everybody's hope? What is everybody's biggest dream in the West? Is to win the lottery and escape. That's it. That's what we all want to do. I'm waiting till retirement. I'm not going to win the lottery. I'm going to retire, and that's what I'm looking forward to. But it is a little bit of a different mentality in China because, like you were saying, Ben, they're not looking to escape. They're looking to build, a great society that people aren't going to want to escape. But it's just night and day different. And the difference is you have a government in power that is for and by the vast majority, and then here we have a government in power that's of and by and for the wealthy. Period.
Incidentally, that was my answer to that same question, because they often say, what would you do? And I said, well, I'd fix the government, get rid of everybody else, and bring up the prosperity levels to the average Hungarian to at least the 1970s and then beyond, and bring back that hope and unleash the average ordinary people in Hungary would have been my answer to that question. Go, Leo.
That's not possible in bourgeois society, because as economic crisis looms, the rich are just going to start squeezing the poor more and more, like we talked about earlier. But on this show, have we talked about the extreme poverty alleviation?
How many 100 million people are we talking about?
900 million, at least, almost a billion people. If I can just have a few words on that, this is the only 3 words that anyone needs for proof of socialism in China is extreme poverty alleviation. People don't understand the process. Just a few sentences.
I do.
Yeah. But most Western Marxists and even Western leftist Marxists do not. It's very straightforward. 30 million party members were mobilized for this project.
3 Hungaries, yes.
Yeah, 30 million. 15 million of them were sent to the poorest, most uneducated rural regions to live for 10 years. And 1,500 of these party members lost their lives in the process, working in extremely dangerous and harsh conditions. I mean, we're talking people who live in houses where the rain floods their house every time it rains, and people who have nothing, like no roads, no nothing. So these 15 million party members lived with the poorest people and figured out custom solutions to not only give them money, but to build whatever they need, whether it's roads, bridges. Everyone has high-speed internet. I mean, the rural poorest people in the poorest villages in China right now has faster internet than Germany. And it's a holistic, to use a California favorite new age term, it's truly a holistic process to uplift people, to enable them to uplift themselves, regional economic development, and all of this. I mean, such a project has never been done in history and inconceivable in any bourgeois dictatorship in the West. So that's the only proof. That's all you need is those 3 words. And if you look into it, that's Marxism right there.
That's great info. I didn't realize, 30 million were mobilized. That's about a third of the Communist Party. I've read some, Godfrey Roberts had an article. It talked about one specific person, in a very underdeveloped state in China, and how, they taught him how to grow and market like pears or something. And it just improved his quality of life tremendously, but an individual basis, like they were going just throughout the country, the poorest places, and dealing directly with people and talking to them and seeing what they could do to lift themselves out of poverty. Just incredible. But thanks for sharing that, Leo, for sure.
It's incredible to imagine that 900 million times. I think it was 3 5-year plans, 300 million, then another 300, then another 300. It's just, and now, by the way, this is what I will end on. Now you have a space station, and that nation is going to the moon. That's what I'd end with.
When are they going to be on the moon, Ben? What year?
Jesus,
Pretty
I don't have it at the top of my head. Sorry, I didn't prepare.
But yeah,
that well.
that's the stated.
There is a lunar
objective. And
program.
when China puts these stated objectives, I mean, it's just a matter of time.
Well, that's all the time we have for. I hope all the billionaires can get to Mars, get off the planet as soon as possible. And we'll leave our discussion for next week. Join us again. Thank you very much.
And may the same fate as the submersible meet them.